The soft chime above the door of the gilded teacup was Elara's favorite sound in the world. It signaled a new arrival, certainly, but more than that, it was a gentle punctuation mark in the quiet rhythm of her days. Each chime meant a moment of connection, a shared warmth over a steaming mug, a brief escape from the brisk sea air that perpetually kissed the charming coastal town of Oakhaven. Elara had built the gilded teacup from a dream and a scattering of old family recipes. It was less a business and more an extension of her own quiet heart, filled with mismatched vintage teacups, the comforting scent of Earl Grey and spiced apple, and shelves overflowing with books borrowed from the small community library next door. Patrons often lingered, lost in a novel or the gentle murmur of conversation, cocooned from the outside world. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind where the sun played hide-and-seek with fluffy clouds, casting shifting patterns of light across the cobblestone street outside. Elara was polishing the antique silver teapot that presided over the counter, a family heirloom that gleamed with untold stories. The shop was blessedly quiet, save for the gentle hiss of the kettle and the distant cry of gulls. Her only customer, Mrs. Gable, a sweet woman with a penchant for lavender scones and historical romances, was lost in a particularly dramatic chapter by the window. Elara hummed a tuneless melody, her movements practiced and fluid. Her life in Oakhaven was, by most standards, a tranquil one. She lived above the shop, her days unfolding with the predictable comfort of a well-loved routine. Yet, lately, a new, subtle thread had begun to weave itself into the fabric of her existence, a whisper that promised something more, something unknown and deeply intriguing. It had started 3 weeks ago. She'd found it tucked beneath the sugar bowl on table 4, after the mid-morning rush had thinned out. A small cream-colored card, thick and luxurious to the touch, with a single, elegant line of script. The quietest hearts often hold the loudest dreams. No name, no signature, just that one resonant sentence. Elara had frowned, her brow furrowing in a mixture of confusion and a strange burgeoning warmth. It wasn't a promotional note, nor a complaint. It felt personal. She'd tucked it into the pocket of her apron, her fingers occasionally brushing against the card throughout the day. A small, secret comfort. Then, 2 days later, another one. This time, placed carefully beside the pot of jasmine tea she'd brewed for herself during a lull. May your days be as bright and fragrant as the jasmine you cherish. Elara had felt a blush creep up her neck. How did they know? She loved jasmine tea, a secret indulgence she rarely shared. She'd looked around the empty shop, then peered out the window. Nothing. Just the usual procession of townsfolk, a dog walker, the postman. The notes continued, appearing every few days, always in unexpected places. Tucked into a book she was reading, slid beneath a freshly baked scone, once even nestled amongst the tea leaves she was weighing out for a customer. They were never overtly romantic, never threatening, just observant, encouraging. Almost as if someone was gently holding a mirror up to her soul, reflecting back the parts she often kept hidden. Your kindness is a beacon in the soft gray of a rainy day. May your spirit find the courage to explore the quiet corners of your own joy. Each note was written in the same distinctive hand, a flowing script that hinted at both elegance and strength. Elara found herself looking forward to them with an almost childlike anticipation. They were her secret, a quiet dance between herself and an unseen admirer. The whispers, she'd begun to call them in her mind, for they felt like soft, intimate confidences shared only with her. She found herself subtly observing her customers, trying to discern who among them possessed such a poetic soul, such keen insight. Was it old Mr. Henderson, who always ordered a robust asim and recited excerpts from forgotten poets? Or perhaps Sarah from the bakery, with her thoughtful eyes and quiet smile? Each possibility felt wrong, somehow. The notes felt different. Younger, perhaps. More mysterious. A few days after the lavender scone note, a new face appeared in Oakhaven. It wasn't a dramatic arrival, no grand fanfare, just a quiet settling in. He appeared first in the hardware store, then at the fishmonger, then, eventually, outside the gilded teacup. Elara first noticed him from her window, during one of her rare moments of idle observation. He was standing across the street, his gaze fixed on the old lighthouse keeper's cottage, a charming but dilapidated structure that sat on a rise overlooking the harbor. The cottage had been empty for years, a relic of Oakhaven's past, its paint peeling, its windows boarded up. He was tall, with broad shoulders encased in a worn denim jacket. His dark hair was a little long, swept back from a thoughtful brow. Even from a distance, Elara could sense a quiet intensity about him, a stillness that drew her eye. He pulled a small notebook from his pocket and began to sketch, his hand moving with confident strokes. Over the next few days she saw him frequently. He was always near the lighthouse cottage, often with a measuring tape or a blueprint unrolled. The whispers continued, weaving their gentle magic into her life, and Elara found herself wondering if there was any connection. Could this new arrival be her anonymous correspondent? It felt too coincidental, too much like something out of one of Mrs. Gable's romance novels. One brisk morning, a week after his first appearance, the chime above Elara's door announced his entrance. He paused just inside, his eyes, the color of warm amber, sweeping over the cozy interior. He seemed to take everything in, the scent of brewing tea, the stacks of books, the worn wooden tables, the eclectic collection of teacups. Elara felt a peculiar flutter in her chest, a nervous energy she hadn't experienced in years. "Good morning," he said, his voice a low, pleasant rumble, surprising in its warmth. "I hear this is the place for the best Earl Grey in Oakhaven." Elara smiled, her earlier nervousness replaced by a professional calm. "You heard correctly, though I'm biased, of course." He approached the counter, a faint smile playing on his lips. Up close she noticed the faint lines around his eyes, hinting at frequent smiles or time spent squinting into the sun. He carried the scent of fresh air and something else, something clean and earthy, like old wood and new beginnings. "I'll take a large one then, please," he said. "And do you happen to have anything that pairs well with blueprints?" He gestured vaguely towards a rolled-up scroll tucked under his arm. Elara chuckled. "I'd recommend our ginger snaps. They're excellent for creative problem-solving." "Ginger snaps it is." He leaned against the counter, his gaze meeting hers directly. "My name's Liam Thorne. I'm the architect working on the lighthouse keeper's cottage." "Elara Vance," she replied, extending a hand. His grip was firm, warm, and brief. "Welcome to Oakhaven, Liam. That cottage has been awaiting a savior for a long time." "It's a beautiful old place," he said, a genuine enthusiasm in his voice. "A lot of history there. It deserves to be brought back to life." As she prepared his tea, Elara felt a strange pull of curiosity. Was this the man behind the whispers? He certainly possessed a quiet thoughtfulness, an observant nature. But his demeanor was direct, open. Would someone so forthright cloak their sentiments in anonymous notes? She handed him his steaming mug and a small paper bag filled with ginger snaps. Their fingers brushed and a tiny spark like static electricity seemed to pass between them. Liam's eyes lingered on hers for a fraction of a second longer than strictly necessary. "Thank you, Elara," he said, his voice a little softer. "This place, it already feels like home." He found a small table by the window, unrolled his blueprints, and began to work, occasionally taking a sip of tea, or breaking off a piece of ginger snap. Elara glanced at him periodically, catching him sketching, lost in thought. He seemed entirely absorbed, yet somehow, she felt his presence keenly. Later that afternoon, after Liam had left, leaving behind a perfectly neat table and the lingering scent of Earl Grey, Elara went to clear the tables. On his table, tucked beneath the edge of a coaster, was another cream-colored card. Her heart gave a little jolt. Even the most formidable structures begin with a single, thoughtful line. She picked it up, her fingers trembling slightly. It was one of Ith Mem. The same elegant script. The same profound simplicity. Could it be? Had he just left it right there? In plain sight? Or had someone else, knowing he was there, slipped it onto his table? The thought made her dizzy. The mystery had deepened, taking on a thrilling new dimension. Elara spent the rest of the week in a delightful state of heightened awareness. The whispers continued, sometimes daily, sometimes every other day. Your courage shines brightest when you least expect it. May your path be guided by the gentle lamp of discovery. Each note seemed to resonate with a small observation she'd made about herself, or a fleeting thought she'd had. The lamp of discovery note had appeared after she'd spent an entire evening researching antique tea sets, something she did purely for pleasure. It felt uncanny. Liam, meanwhile, became a more regular fixture in Oakhaven. He was often seen at the cottage, clearing debris, taking measurements, or consulting with local builders. He would occasionally stop by the Gilded Teacup for tea and ginger snaps, always exchanging a polite, yet warm word with Alara. Their conversations were brief, surface-level exchanges about the weather, the progress of the cottage, or the merits of different tea blends. Yet, Alara felt a current of something unspoken beneath their words, a shared understanding that bloomed in the silences. One blustery Saturday morning, Alara decided to take a rare break from the shop. She loved to walk along the cliffs that hugged the coastline, the fierce wind an invigorating contrast to the cozy warmth of her shop. The path led past the lighthouse keeper's cottage, and she found herself slowing her pace as she approached it. Liam was there, his sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms dusted with sawdust. He was wrestling with a stubborn piece of old timber, his brow furrowed in concentration. The cottage, even in its state of disrepair, held a certain charm under his attention. He paused, wiping a hand across his forehead, and caught sight of Alara. A genuine, easy smile lit his face. "Alara, what a surprise." "Just enjoying the sea air," she replied, pulling her scarf tighter against the wind. "You're making good progress." He gestured around him, a smudge of dirt on his cheek. "Slowly but surely. It's more of a project than I anticipated, but in the best possible way. Every plank, every stone has a story." "I imagine so," she said, her gaze sweeping over the old building. "Oakhaven is full of stories." "It truly is," he agreed, his eyes meeting hers, holding them for a moment. "I'm still getting to know them. The town, the people, it's a special place." Alara felt a warmth spread through her, despite the chill wind. "It is. We're glad to have you." He leaned against a half-dismantled porch railing, his posture relaxed. "Speaking of stories, your shop feels like a repository of them. All those books, the quiet conversations. It's got a real heart." "Thank you," she said, genuinely touched. "I try to make it a place where people can find a moment of peace, or a new perspective." "You succeed," he confirmed, his gaze thoughtful. "I found myself looking forward to my tea breaks more than I should." He paused, then added, almost as an afterthought, "There's something about a well-brewed cup of tea and the quiet comfort of your shop that just settles the mind." Alara's heart fluttered again. Was he hinting? Was this his way of acknowledging the notes, without explicitly mentioning them? Or was she simply overthinking it, attributing meaning where there was none? The ambiguity was both frustrating and exhilarating. "I'm glad," she managed, her voice a little breathy. The wind whipped a strand of hair across her face, and he reached out, a purely instinctual gesture, to tuck it behind her ear. His fingers brushed her skin, a feather-light touch that sent a shiver down her spine. "Careful," he murmured, his eyes momentarily darker, more intense. "The wind here has a mind of its own." He dropped his hand, and the moment passed, leaving a tingling awareness in its wake. They stood in comfortable silence for a few moments, the roar of the ocean filling the space between them. "I should let you get back to it," Alara finally said reluctantly. "Don't want to hold up the restoration." He smiled, a genuine, open smile that reached his eyes. "Never a hold-up, Alara. Always a welcome distraction." As she walked away, Alara felt a lightness in her step, a new vibrancy to the colors of the sea and sky. Liam Thorne was more than just an architect. He was a presence, a quiet force that seemed to stir something dormant within her. And the whispers, they continued to arrive, like tiny, beautiful seeds of hope being planted in the fertile soil of her heart. The very next day, a Sunday, a note appeared not in the shop, but tucked into the collar of her coat, which she'd hung on the hook by the back door of her apartment above the shop. She'd put it on to go out for groceries, and the note had practically fallen into her lap. "May your Sunday be filled with unexpected joys and quiet revelations." Alara held the card, her fingers tracing the elegant script. Unexpected joys. Quiet revelations. The joy of Liam's presence. The quiet revelation of her growing feelings. It all felt so intertwined now, the anonymous kindness and the intriguing new man. She spent the afternoon grappling with it. If it was Liam, why the anonymity? Was it shyness? A playful mystery? Or was it simply a way to connect without the pressure of direct interaction? A gentle invitation to open up. That evening, as dusk painted the sky in hues of lavender and rose, Alara sat by her window overlooking the harbor, a cup of chamomile tea steaming in her hands. The lighthouse, now dark and quiet, stood sentinel on the bluff. Soon Liam would bring it back to life, its beacon once again cutting through the night. She thought of his kind eyes, his warm voice, the casual brush of his fingers. She thought of the whispers, each one a tiny act of kindness, a testament to someone seeing her, truly seeing her, in a way no one ever had before. A new feeling was blossoming within her, fragile yet strong, like a spring crocus pushing through the last vestiges of winter snow. It was a feeling of anticipation, of possibility, a quiet excitement for what the coming days might bring. The whispers had nudged her, gently, out of her comfortable predictability. And now, with Liam's arrival, the world felt a little wider, a little brighter. The mystery of her secret admirer was far from solved, but Alara no longer felt the need to rush for answers. Instead, she found herself relishing the journey, the unfolding of each delicate clue. She knew, deep in her heart, that the story was just beginning, and she was ready for whatever came next. She was ready for more whispers. The next morning, the air in Alara's apartment felt lighter, imbued with a subtle scent of possibility she hadn't noticed before. She found herself humming as she made her herbal tea, a melody she couldn't quite place, but which felt like a forgotten echo from a happy dream. The bookstore, when she opened it, seemed to greet her with a silent, welcoming sigh. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air like tiny, golden secrets. Liam arrived mid-morning, not with a book order, but with a small, unassuming brown paper bag clutched in one hand. He was wearing a soft heather-gray jumper that brought out the flecks of gold in his eyes, and a smile that seemed to warm the entire room. "Good morning, Alara," he said, his voice a low, pleasant rumble. "I was passing by the bakery, and they had just pulled a fresh batch of almond croissants from the oven. Thought you might appreciate one." Alara felt a flush creep up her neck. "Liam, that's incredibly thoughtful. Thank you." She took the bag, the scent of warm pastry immediately wafting up, making her stomach rumble in polite protest. "Would you like to share? I was just about to make another pot of tea." His smile widened. "I'd love to, but only if you let me pay for my half." She chuckled, shaking her head. "Nonsense. Consider it a thank you for your generosity yesterday and today." She gestured towards the small, worn armchair by the window, her usual reading spot. "Make yourself comfortable. I'll be right back." As she steeped the tea, her mind buzzed with a quiet delight. Liam wasn't just handsome. He was kind, considerate, and possessed an easy charm that put her at ease. Sharing a croissant and tea with him in her quiet bookstore felt wonderfully natural, as if it were a routine they had established long ago. They talked about books, of course, his current reads, her recommendations, the fascinating history of old printing presses. He had an impressive depth of knowledge, but wore it lightly, always curious to hear her perspective. "You know," he said, taking a sip of his tea, his gaze sweeping over the shelves, "this place has a real soul. You can feel the stories breathing in the walls." Alara's heart swelled with pride. "That's exactly what I hoped for. I always wanted it to be more than just a place to buy books, a sanctuary perhaps for quiet contemplation or lively discussion." "You've certainly achieved it," he murmured, his eyes lingering on her for a moment longer than strictly necessary, sending a pleasant shiver down her spine. Just as they finished their tea, a small, elderly woman, Mrs. Gable, entered the shop, her usual request for a new mystery novel ready on her lips. Liam, seeing Alara was needed, gracefully excused himself, promising to return later that week for a specific edition of poetry he'd been searching for. After he left, the shop felt a little quieter, a little emptier. Alara found herself glancing at the door, a faint wistfulness settling over her. The whispers, however, weren't content to let her linger in quiet longing. That afternoon, while shelving a new delivery of historical fiction, her fingers brushed against something tucked between two hardcovers. It was a single, delicate feather, iridescent blue, and impossibly soft. Attached to its quill with a tiny silver thread was a minuscule scroll, no bigger than her thumbnail. Her breath hitched. Another whisper. With trembling fingers, she unrolled the parchment. The elegant, familiar script filled the miniature space. Like a feather on the breeze. Your spirit dances, light and free. May joy your gentle journey please, and guide you to what's meant to be. Now there. Elara's eyes traced the words again, a slow smile spreading across her face. The imagery was beautiful, personal, and imbued with a sense of hopeful anticipation. What's meant to be? The phrase resonated deep within her, echoing the feeling of quiet readiness that had settled over her since Liam's arrival. She carefully placed the feather and its scroll into her special wooden box, a small treasure chest of these mysterious gifts. The admirer was certainly persistent and increasingly poetic. She wondered if the feather was from a specific bird, a symbolic gesture. A blue jay, perhaps? Known for their intelligence and curiosity. Or a kingfisher, a symbol of peace and prosperity. The thought of Liam returned. He had such a way with words, she mused. And his appreciation for poetry was evident. Was it possible? The timing of these whispers, coinciding with his presence in her life, was certainly curious. But then he seemed so straightforward, so genuine in his interactions. Would he resort to such elaborate anonymity? It felt a little theatrical for him, somehow. Yet, the thought thrilled her, a secret hope blossoming in her chest. Over the next few days, Liam did indeed return, true to his word. He browsed the poetry section, eventually selecting a beautifully bound collection of Rilke. Their conversations grew longer, more intimate. They discussed fears and dreams, the comfort found in solitude, the exhilaration of new beginnings. He told her about his work as a freelance archivist, preserving old manuscripts and historical documents, a job that required patience, an eye for detail, and a deep respect for the past. Elara, in turn, shared her journey of opening the bookstore, the challenges and the profound satisfaction. One rainy afternoon, Liam found her wrestling with a particularly stubborn ladder, trying to reach a high shelf. He effortlessly took over, his height and strength making light work of it. As he stood on the top rung, carefully arranging a stack of first editions, Elara found herself admiring the strong line of his back, the way his dark hair fell across his brow. He seemed to sense her gaze, turning his head slightly, a playful glint in his eyes. "Need a hand reaching any other forbidden fruits up here, Elara?" he quipped, his voice warm. She laughed, a genuine, uninhibited sound. "For now, I think I'm good, but I might just invent a new high-shelf crisis if it means you'll stick around." His smile softened, and for a moment, the air crackled with an unspoken current between them. "I wouldn't mind that at all." The rain outside intensified, drumming a gentle rhythm on the skylights. They ended up in the small kitchen at the back of the shop, sharing another pot of tea, the aroma of Earl Grey mingling with the scent of old paper and rain. "You know," Liam began, stirring his tea thoughtfully, "I've been curious about something. You mentioned you'd been feeling a little restless before I arrived. Is everything all right?" Elara hesitated, swirling the tea leaves in her cup. How much should she share? The whispers felt so personal, so intertwined with her own journey of rediscovery. "Yes," she finally said, her voice soft. "Everything is more than all right. It's evolving, I suppose. I'd been feeling a bit stuck, a bit too comfortable in my routine. And then, well, things started to happen. Little nudges." She smiled, a private, knowing smile. Little whispers. Liam's expression was unreadable, a flicker of something she couldn't quite decipher in his eyes. "Whispers?" he prompted, his tone gentle, encouraging. "Yes," she continued, finding it easier to articulate now. "Someone has been leaving me little gifts, little notes. They're beautiful, intriguing. They've made me look at things differently, made me feel a sense of anticipation I hadn't realized I was missing." She didn't mention the possibility that I might be the admirer. That felt too vulnerable, too presumptive. He listened intently, his gaze unwavering. "That sounds incredibly romantic," he said slowly. "A secret admirer. How do you feel about it?" "Intrigued. Flattered, of course. A little bewildered, she admitted, a blush rising. It's like being in a story waiting for the next chapter. And do you have any idea who it might be? He asked, a lightness in his voice now, though his eyes still held that thoughtful depth. Elara shook her head. No, not really. That's part of the charm, I suppose. The mystery. It could be anyone. She met his gaze, a playful challenge in her own. Could even be you, for all I know. A genuine hearty laugh burst from Liam, filling the small kitchen. May? Elara, I assure you my methods are usually far less poetic and much more direct. If I wanted to tell you something, I'd simply say it. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes sparkling. Though I admit, the idea of being your mysterious benefactor has a certain appeal. His denial, though delivered with good humor, sounded sincere. Elara felt a small pang of disappointment, quickly followed by a sense of relief. It meant their burgeoning connection was real, unclouded by the shadow of the admirer. Yet, the mystery remained, a delightful current running beneath the surface of her days. Well, she said, feigning a sigh, a girl can dream, but I appreciate the honesty. It saves me from endless speculation. You're a captivating subject for speculation, Elara, he said, his voice dropping to a softer tone. Whether it's from a secret admirer or just a regular appreciative customer. The compliment hung in the air between them, warm and sweet. Elara felt her cheeks flush again, a pleasant warmth spreading through her chest. The rain outside seemed to soften, becoming a soothing backdrop to their quiet conversation. As days turned into weeks, the rhythm of Elara's life began to shift. The bookstore continued to be her sanctuary, but it was now also a place of shared laughter and meaningful glances with Liam. He visited often, sometimes bringing a new book to show her, sometimes just to chat, and occasionally to help her with a particularly heavy delivery or a tricky display. He never overstayed his welcome, always sensing when she needed to focus on her work, but his presence left a lingering warmth. He introduced her to his favorite coffee shop, a cozy place with mismatched furniture and the best lavender lattes she'd ever tasted. They spent an entire afternoon there, sharing stories of their childhoods, their aspirations, their quiet fears. Elara found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't to anyone in years. He listened with an attentiveness that made her feel truly seen, truly heard. One sunny Saturday, Liam suggested a walk in the botanical gardens on the edge of town. Elara, usually content with the quiet solitude of her bookstore, found herself eagerly agreeing. The gardens were a riot of color and scent, vibrant blooms spilling over trellises, ancient trees reaching skyward. As they strolled along a winding path, past a bubbling stream, Liam pointed out a rare species of fern, explaining its delicate ecosystem with a quiet passion. You have such a deep appreciation for the natural world, Elara observed, watching him. It's lovely. He smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile. There's so much beauty if you just take the time to look, isn't there? Everything has a story, a purpose. His words struck a chord with her, echoing the sentiment of the whispers. Everything has a story, a purpose. She wondered if the admirer also appreciated the subtle beauty of nature, if perhaps they were someone who saw the world through a similar lens. As they rounded a corner, they came upon a secluded bench beneath a weeping willow, its branches creating a private green canopy. Tucked into a crevice in the gnarled bark of the willow tree, Elara spotted a small, intricately folded paper bird. A crane, she realized, recognizing the delicate origami. Her heart gave a little flutter. This felt like a whisper. She reached for it, her fingers brushing against the cool, dry paper. Unfolding it carefully, she found another message, written in the familiar, elegant script. Beneath the weeping willow's grace. A silent promise time cannot erase. May hope unfurl in this tranquil space and lead you to your destined place. Then, Elara read the words, a sense of wonder washing over her. The message was gentle, reassuring, and perfectly timed. Ein destined place. It felt like an invitation, a gentle push towards something beautiful and unknown. She looked up, her gaze sweeping the serene surroundings, then landing on Liam. He had been watching her, a curious, gentle expression on his face. What is it, Elara? He asked, his voice soft. She hesitated, then decided to share. This felt different, more connected to their shared experience of the gardens. It's another whisper, she confessed, holding out the origami crane and its tiny note. Liam took it, his brow furrowing slightly as he read the message. He handled the delicate paper with surprising care, his long fingers moving with a practiced gentleness. A paper crane, he mused. Symbol of peace, longevity, good fortune, and hope, as the note says. He looked up at her, his eyes serious. This admirer certainly knows how to make an impression, and they seem to know your routines, your favored spots. That's what's so intriguing, Alara agreed, a shiver of mystery and excitement running through her. And a little unnerving, perhaps. But mostly, it feels like a benevolent presence, someone who wants to see me happy. I'd wager they do, Liam said, a small, enigmatic smile playing on his lips. He returned the crane and note to her. Do you think you're getting any closer to figuring out who it is? Alara shook her head, tucking the crane carefully into her purse. Not really. Each clue is so lovely, so thoughtful, but it doesn't scream this person. It's more about the feeling, the sentiment behind them. She paused, looking at him. You know, you're the first person I've really shared these with. It feels good to talk about it. I'm glad you feel comfortable enough to, he replied, his voice warm. It sounds like a truly unique experience. And perhaps, he added, his gaze drifting towards the path they'd just taken. The journey of discovering the admirer is just as important as the discovery itself. His observation resonated deeply with Alara. He understood. He truly understood the quiet magic of it all. As they continued their walk, a comfortable silence settled between them, punctuated by the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves. Alara felt a profound sense of contentment, a quiet joy that hummed beneath her skin. Back at the bookstore that evening, as Alara tidied up, she found herself rereading all the whispers she had collected. The pressed forget-me-not, the single blue feather, the tiny poem tucked into a book, and now the paper crane. Each one a thread in a beautiful, unfolding tapestry. She also thought of Liam, his easy presence, his thoughtful insights, the way his smile made her feel. A new thought began to weave its way into her mind, a subtle shift in perspective. What if the whispers weren't about leading her to the admirer, but rather about leading her to herself? Or, more precisely, preparing her for something, opening her heart to possibilities she hadn't considered. And what if Liam, with his gentle presence and growing connection, was part of that possibility? The following week brought a flurry of activity to the bookstore. A local author hosted a book signing, drawing a larger crowd than usual. Alara, bustling behind the counter, felt a familiar thrill watching her passion for books bring people together. Liam, ever observant, appeared towards the end of the event, offering to help her pack up the remaining books and tidy the shop. You handle a crowd beautifully, he commented as they stacked chairs. You have a real gift for making people feel welcome. It's easy when you genuinely love what you do, she replied, smiling at him. And it's certainly easier with an extra pair of hands. They worked in companionable silence for a while, the soft clatter of books and furniture filling the quiet aftermath of the event. As Alara wiped down the counter, her hand brushed against a small, flat object tucked beneath a stack of promotional flyers. It was a beautifully carved wooden bookmark, slender and smooth, etched with a delicate depiction of a book opening, its pages transforming into a flock of birds taking flight. On the reverse, in the now familiar script, was another message. May your pages always turn. New stories waiting to be learned. May your spirit brightly burn, and love's sweet lessons be discerned. Nay. Alara's breath caught. This whisper was different. More direct. Love's sweet lessons be discerned. It felt like an urging, a gentle push towards recognizing the love that was already present, or perhaps the love that was blossoming around her. She showed it to Liam, her eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and a new, burgeoning understanding. Look, Liam, this one, it feels different, more personal somehow. He took the bookmark, his thumb tracing the delicate carving. His expression was thoughtful, almost introspective. It is beautiful. And yes, the message. It feels like a nudge towards something significant. He looked up, his gaze meeting hers, intense and searching. What do you think it means? Alara felt a wave of warmth spread through her. She thought about their conversations, their shared laughter, the quiet comfort of his presence. She thought about how he looked at her, how he listened. She thought about the way her own heart now quickened whenever he entered the shop. "I think," she began, her voice a little breathy, "I think it means to be open, to see what's right in front of you, to trust the feeling." Liam's eyes softened, a gentle smile spreading across his face. "And what feeling is that, Alara?" he asked, his voice low, a tender question hanging in the air between them. She took a deep breath, her heart thrumming a hopeful rhythm. She felt a surge of courage, spurred by the whispers, by Liam's steady gaze, by the undeniable truth blossoming within her. "The feeling," she said, her voice growing stronger, "that something wonderful is happening. That perhaps the whispers weren't just about a secret admirer, but about preparing my heart for something else. Something real." She met his gaze directly, a silent question in her eyes. "And that perhaps, that something real is you." A profound stillness settled in the shop. The streetlights outside cast long, soft shadows through the windows. Liam's hand, still holding the bookmark, reached out, gently covering hers where it rested on the counter. His touch was warm, comforting, and sent a jolt of delicious electricity through her. "Alara," he said, his voice a whisper now, filled with an emotion that made her heart ache in the most wonderful way. "I've hoped you would feel that too." His thumb gently caressed the back of her hand. "From the moment I walked into this bookstore, I felt it, a connection." He paused, then continued, his eyes never leaving hers. "And yes, the whispers. They've been fascinating. I've wondered if they were preparing you for something too, for a different kind of story." Alara's mind raced, a sudden thrilling realization beginning to dawn. Kay knew about the whispers. He understood their purpose. It was as if a missing piece of a puzzle had just clicked into place, creating a clearer, more beautiful picture. "Liam," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Are you the admirer?" He smiled, a slow, tender, utterly captivating smile that lit up his eyes. "I confess, Alara, I couldn't resist. From the moment I first saw you, surrounded by all these beautiful stories, I knew I wanted to be part of yours. But I also sensed you needed a gentle nudge, a bit of enchantment, to step out of your comfortable shell, so I became your secret admirer." Alara felt a joyous, breathless laugh bubble up from deep within her. It wasn't a shock, not really. It was a confirmation, a delightful affirmation of what her heart had suspected, wished for, all along. The clues, the timing, his gentle nature, his love for words, it all made perfect, beautiful sense. You rogue," she murmured, shaking her head, a wide, radiant smile spreading across her face. "All this time I was wondering, speculating, and it was you. Only because I wanted to be sure you were ready for me to be MA," he clarified, his voice earnest. "I wanted to open your heart, not just win it with a grand gesture. I wanted to show you the beauty in waiting, in unfolding, in the quiet magic of discovery." He squeezed her hand gently. "And now that you've discerned love's sweet lessons, Alara, what do you say?" Alara's eyes were shining. The mystery wasn't just solved. It had deepened into something far more meaningful, far more real. The whispers hadn't been a diversion, but a prelude, a carefully crafted overture to the symphony of their connection. "I say," she began, her voice thick with emotion, "I say thank you for every whisper, for every clue, for every gentle nudge. And I say yes to whatever comes next, yes to our story." Liam's smile widened, encompassing her completely. He moved closer, his hand still holding hers, his other arm gently circling her waist, drawing her towards him. The wooden bookmark, the final whisper, lay forgotten on the counter for a moment, its message already absorbed, its purpose fulfilled. As he leaned in, his gaze tender and full of promise, Alara felt a profound sense of rightness, of coming home. His lips met hers in a soft, tentative kiss, a kiss that tasted of almond croissants, old books, and the sweet, exhilarating promise of a love story, just truly beginning. It was a kiss that sealed not just a mystery solved, but a heart found. The bookstore, silent and peaceful around them, seemed to hold its breath, witnessing the quiet magic. The whispers had indeed led her to something extraordinary, something more beautiful and deeply felt than she could have ever imagined. And as Liam deepened the kiss, a warmth radiating through her entire being, Alara knew, with absolute certainty, that she was ready for every single chapter of this new, wonderful story. Ready for more whispers, yes. But even more so, ready for the beautiful, honest words that would now flow between them, freely and openly, for all their days. The journey was far from over. It had merely found its true beginning. The journey was far from over. It had merely found its true beginning. Liam's lips, soft and sure, lingered on hers, a silent promise unfolding in the quiet of the cabin. When he finally pulled back, it was only by a breath, their foreheads resting against each other, his hands still cupping her face, thumbs gently stroking her cheeks. Alara's eyes fluttered open, meeting his, and she saw not just affection, but a deep, resonant understanding that mirrored her own. "Alara," he whispered, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through her. A soft laugh, laced with wonder, escaped her. "And you, Liam, though I didn't know what I was waiting for, not truly, until now." The words felt easy, truthful, like sunlight breaking through clouds. There was no need for grand pronouncements, only this raw, beautiful honesty that hummed between them. He kissed her forehead, then her nose, a series of gentle, reassuring touches that spoke volumes. "You're everything I didn't know I needed," he murmured, pulling her closer, wrapping his arms around her waist as she instinctively looped hers around his neck. They swayed slightly, a slow, silent dance in the flickering firelight, the world outside fading into insignificance. The air in the cabin was thick with newfound possibility, a tangible warmth that had nothing to do with the roaring fire and everything to do with the connection that had just bloomed so spectacularly between them. Alara leaned into Liam, resting her head against his chest, listening to the steady, comforting beat of his heart. It was a rhythm that suddenly felt incredibly familiar, like a melody she'd always known, but only just now, truly heard. She felt safe, utterly and completely safe, in a way she hadn't realized she'd been yearning for. The fear of the ordinary, that subtle dread that had always clung to the edges of her dreams, had dissolved, replaced by the thrilling prospect of a shared, extraordinary life with this man. They stood like that for a long time, simply being, letting the profound shift settle into the very marrow of their bones. The silence was not empty, but full of unspoken promises, shared dreams, and the quiet joy of two souls finally finding their rightful place. Eventually, Liam gently guided her towards the worn leather sofa by the fireplace. They sat close, knees touching, hands finding each other naturally, fingers lacing together. The fire crackled, casting dancing shadows on the rustic walls, illuminating the intricate patterns of her scarf. "I've wanted to tell you," Alara began, her voice soft, "how much your presence has meant to me, even before tonight. You have this way of seeing things, of making me feel seen." She squeezed his hand and understood. Liam turned his head, his gaze tender. "The feeling is mutual, Alara. From the first time I saw you sketching by the lake, there was something about you. A quiet intensity, a beauty that drew me in. I felt like I'd stumbled upon something rare, something precious." He paused, his thumb tracing the back of her hand. "I tried to be patient. I wanted to give you space, to let you come to me, if you ever felt ready." "You did," she confirmed, a grateful smile gracing her lips. "And I appreciate it more than you know. I've always been a bit guarded, afraid to let anyone too close, afraid of what might happen if I did." She looked at their intertwined hands. "But with you it feels different. It feels right." He nodded, his eyes searching hers, a depth of emotion swirling within them. "It feels right to me too, more than right. It feels like coming home." They talked then, not with the urgency of people trying to catch up on lost time, but with the gentle flow of a river finding its path. They spoke of small things, the way the light hit the mountains in the morning, the scent of pine after a rain, the satisfaction of a well-executed brushstroke, or a perfectly balanced piece of wood. And they spoke of larger things, their fears, their hopes, their quiet ambitions. Ilara shared her dreams for her art, her desire to create pieces that resonated deeply, that told stories without words. Liam spoke of his passion for his craft, the satisfaction of building something lasting and beautiful with his own hands, of connecting with the natural world through his work. "I've always loved the idea of creating something tangible," Ilara mused, leaning her head on his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him. "Something that can be touched, held, that has a life beyond the canvas. Your work, Liam, it has that." "And your art, Ilara," he countered, gently stroking her hair. "It brings beauty and emotion to life in a way that's almost magical. It speaks to the soul. I've never seen colors sing the way they do in your paintings." They fell into a comfortable silence once more, the kind where words weren't necessary, where simply existing side by side was enough. The fire began to dwindle, embers glowing like sleepy eyes. The cabin grew cooler, but they remained warm, cocooned in their shared space, their burgeoning love a new powerful source of heat. Eventually, hunger stirred. "I should probably make us some dinner," Ilara said, reluctantly stirring from her comfortable position, though Liam's arm still held her close. "Let me help," he offered immediately, rising with her. They moved together in the small kitchen, a new kind of rhythm already settling between them. Liam chopped vegetables with practiced ease, his strong hands surprisingly delicate, while Ilara stirred a simple pot of pasta, the aroma of garlic and herbs filling the air. There was no awkwardness, only a quiet dance of cooperation, a shared joy in the simple act of preparing a meal together. He watched her, a soft smile playing on his lips as she hummed a little tune, her movements graceful and unself-conscious. She caught his gaze and smiled back, a genuine, radiant smile that made his heart swell. They ate by the flickering candlelight, sharing stories and quiet laughter. Ilara found herself telling him about her childhood, the whimsical adventures she imagined, the way she'd always seen the world in vibrant hues and intricate patterns. Liam, in turn, spoke of growing up in a small, close-knit community, learning the value of hard work and the beauty of natural materials from his father, a carpenter himself. He shared anecdotes about quirky clients and challenging projects, his eyes lighting up with passion as he described the process of transforming raw wood into something magnificent. "I've always admired how grounded you are," Ilara confessed, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "You have such a clear sense of who you are, what you believe in. It's anchoring." "And you," he replied, his fingers closing around hers, "you have a spirit that soars. You remind me to look up, to see the wonder in the everyday, to find the extraordinary in what others might overlook." As the evening deepened, a comfortable lassitude settled over them. They lingered at the table, just talking, savoring the quiet intimacy. The world outside, with its demands and distractions, felt miles away, a distant hum they no longer needed to heed. Here, in the cozy embrace of the cabin, they were simply Ilara and Liam, two souls discovering the profound joy of truly connecting. Later, wrapped in the softest blankets by the dying embers of the fire, they shared a single cup of herbal tea, their shoulders touching. The air grew still, the only sounds the gentle tick of the old grandfather clock in the corner and the soft whisper of their breaths. Ilara leaned into Liam, feeling the steady rise and fall of his chest, a profound sense of peace washing over her. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his presence permeate her very being. "This," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "This is more beautiful than any dream I ever dared to have." He pressed a soft kiss to the top of her head. "And this, Ilara, is just the beginning." When the first hints of dawn painted the sky with soft mauves and grays, Ilara woke slowly, a sense of deep contentment settling over her. She was nestled against Liam, his arm a gentle weight across her waist, his even breathing a comforting presence. The cabin was still and cool, but she felt warm, cherished, entirely at peace. Carefully she turned to face him, observing the peaceful lines of his face in the soft light. He stirred, his eyes fluttering open, a lazy, loving smile spreading across his lips as he saw her. "Good morning," he whispered, his voice still thick with sleep, but infused with unmistakable tenderness. "Good morning," she replied, her heart doing a little flutter. There was something so exquisitely intimate about waking up beside him, sharing the quiet dawn, the world outside still hushed and waiting. It felt like a sacred space, a secret garden built just for them. They lingered in bed for a while, talking in low voices, sharing quiet smiles and gentle touches. The simple act of existing together in the early light felt like an affirmation of everything that had passed between them the night before. There was a sense of rightness, of effortless belonging, that permeated every moment. Eventually they rose, moving with a comfortable familiarity that seemed to have materialized overnight. Liam made coffee, its rich aroma filling the cabin, while Alara gathered ingredients for a simple breakfast of oatmeal and berries. They worked side by side, sharing quiet jokes, their hands occasionally brushing, sending sparks of connection through them. The morning light streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, transforming the rustic cabin into a sanctuary of warmth and light. Over breakfast, they spoke of their days ahead, their separate lives that would now, inextricably, be interwoven. "I have a client meeting this afternoon," Liam explained. "But I'd love to see you tonight, if you're free?" "I'd love that," Alara said, her eyes sparkling. "I have some studio time, but I can always make room for you." She felt a thrill at the prospect of seeing him again, of bringing this new, beautiful connection into her everyday world. Leaving the cabin felt different this time. It wasn't just a retreat from the world, it was a launching pad into a new one. As they locked the door behind them, Liam reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. The sun was fully up now, painting the forest in hues of gold and emerald, and the air was crisp and clear. "Thank you, Liam," Alara said, stopping to look at him, her gaze earnest. "For everything. For seeing me. For waiting. For..." She gestured vaguely at the beautiful world around them, but her meaning was clear, for the new chapter that had just begun. He squeezed her hand. "Thank you, Alara, for letting me in, for being you." The drive back to town was filled with comfortable silences and soft laughter, punctuated by stolen glances and the reassuring warmth of their joined hands. Alara felt a lightness she hadn't known she was missing, a joyful anticipation for what lay ahead. The world seemed brighter, sharper, infused with a new vibrancy. Back in her studio, the familiar scent of oil paint and turpentine enveloped her, but even her workspace felt transformed. She looked at her canvases, at the vibrant, abstract landscapes she'd been working on, and saw them with fresh eyes. Before, she had painted with a certain longing, a yearning for something just out of reach. Now her brushstrokes felt bolder, more confident, infused with a new depth of emotion. The color seemed to sing with a quiet joy she hadn't quite captured before. She found herself sketching Liam, the strong line of his jaw, the gentle curve of his smile, the thoughtful intensity in his eyes. It was a rapid, instinctive outpouring, capturing not just his likeness, but the essence of his presence, the way he made her feel. Her fear of the ordinary, which had once threatened to stifle her creativity, now seemed utterly unfounded. With Liam, nothing felt ordinary. Every shared glance, every touch, every quiet moment was imbued with a profound significance, an inner glow that made the mundane extraordinary. That evening, Liam took her to a small, cozy restaurant in town, a place known for its warm ambience and delicious, unpretentious food. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was perfect. They sat across from each other, candlelight flickering between them, talking easily, sharing stories from their day. Alara described her renewed inspiration, the way her art felt like it had found a new voice. Liam listened intently, his eyes alight with genuine interest, offering insightful observations that surprised and delighted her. "I have always admired how you can see beauty in the details," he commented, watching her describe a particularly intricate pattern she'd seen in a fallen leaf. "You help me slow down to notice the small wonders." "And you," she replied, a warmth spreading through her chest. "You remind me that beauty can be built, crafted, brought into being with patience and skill. You build worlds, Liam, in your own way." They talked for hours, long after their plates were cleared, comfortable in the easy flow of conversation, the shared laughter, the growing understanding that wove between them like an invisible thread. There was a sense of profound joy in simply being together, in sharing the simple pleasures of a good meal and good company. In the weeks that followed, their relationship blossomed, deepening with each passing day. They fell into a comfortable rhythm of seeing each other, blending their lives with a natural ease. Weekday evenings often found them cooking together at Alara's charming, slightly bohemian cottage, or at Liam's sturdy, well-built home, filled with the rich scent of wood. They would share stories of their days, sometimes working quietly side by side, Elara sketching or planning a new piece, Liam perhaps whittling a small sculpture or sketching designs for a client. Weekends were for shared adventures. They explored hidden hiking trails, discovering breathtaking vistas and tiny, resilient wildflowers that Elara would meticulously sketch. Liam taught her the names of trees and birds, pointing out the subtle shifts in the forest floor, the way light filtered through the canopy. She, in turn, introduced him to new art galleries, to the vibrant energy of local craft markets, helping him see the world through her artistic lens. One crisp autumn afternoon, they found themselves at a sprawling antique fair. Elara, ever the collector of curiosities, was drawn to a dusty booth overflowing with vintage textiles. Liam, with his carpenter's eye, gravitated towards old tools and forgotten wooden objects. They wandered together, delighting in each other's interests. Elara found a beautifully embroidered linen cloth, its threads faded, but still vibrant, and imagined it draped over a studio table. Liam, meanwhile, unearthed a small, intricately carved wooden box, clearly handmade with love decades ago. "Look at the joinery on this," he murmured, his fingers tracing the delicate craftsmanship. "Someone put their heart into this." Elara smiled, pressing closer to him. "Just like you do, Liam, you put your heart into everything." He looked at her, his gaze tender. "It means more, now that I have you to share it with." They started little traditions. Sunday morning coffee at a sun-drenched cafe where they'd read side by side, occasionally sharing an interesting article or a funny anecdote. Evening walks along the lake, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues, their hands clasped, their steps perfectly in sync. They talked about everything and nothing, from the mundane details of their schedules to the grandest dreams for their future. Liam introduced Elara to his close-knit family, a warm and welcoming group who immediately embraced her. She found herself charmed by his mother's easy laughter and his father's quiet wisdom, seeing in them the roots of Liam's own gentle strength. Elara, in turn, brought Liam to meet her few carefully chosen friends, who quickly saw the profound happiness he brought into her life. They observed the easy affection between them, the way Liam's presence seemed to ground Elara, while she, in turn, encouraged his quiet joy. One evening, as they sat on her porch swing, watching fireflies blink in the deepening twilight, Elara leaned her head against Liam's shoulder. "I used to think," she confessed softly, "that love would be this grand, dramatic thing, filled with declarations and sweeping gestures." Liam's arm tightened around her. "And what do you think now?" She smiled, a contented sigh escaping her. "Now, I think it's in the quiet moments, the shared silences, the knowing glances. It's in the way you make my coffee just right, or the way you listen when I talk about my art, even when I ramble. It's in the comfort of your hand in mine, and the feeling of knowing, truly knowing, that I'm not alone." She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "It's in finding the extraordinary in every single ordinary day, because I'm sharing it with you." He kissed her then, a slow, tender kiss that held all the warmth and depth of their shared journey. "That," he murmured against her lips, "is the most beautiful kind of love, Elara. The kind that lasts, that grows stronger with every sunrise." The future stretched before them, not as a daunting unknown, but as a path bathed in gentle light, ready to be explored, chapter by beautiful chapter. There were still so many stories to tell, so many quiet moments to share, so many dreams to weave together. And as the fireflies danced in the twilight, mirroring the sparks that continued to fly between their hearts, Elara knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her soul, that their story was truly just beginning. Weeks turned into months, each one painting new hues onto the canvas of their shared life. Liam became a constant, comforting presence at the bookstore, often finding Elara lost in a book, a soft smile on her lips, and simply sitting beside her, his hand finding hers. Elara, in turn, spent more time in Liam's workshop, mesmerized by the way his strong, gentle hands coaxed beauty from raw wood, the scent of sawdust and new beloved aroma that now felt like home. They discovered shared passions, long walks by the river, quiet evenings reading aloud to each other by the fireplace, his deep voice a lullaby against the crackle of burning logs. They learned each other's quirks, Liam's insistence on perfectly squared corners, Ilara's habit of leaving half-finished cups of tea. Instead of irritating, these small details became endearing facets of the person they cherished, symbols of their unique unfolding story. One autumn, a significant commission called Liam away for a fortnight, crafting bespoke wooden panels in a remote mountain cabin. The separation, though brief, felt like an eternity. Ilara missed his presence acutely, the cottage feeling empty without his quiet hum or the comforting scent of his morning coffee. Liam, too, found his focus drifting from his carving, his thoughts returning constantly to Ilara's infectious laughter, the way her eyes crinkled with genuine joy, the quiet companionship they shared. Their nightly phone calls became lifelines, bridging the miles with whispered reassurances and shared dreams. "I miss our quiet," Ilara confessed one evening, her voice soft. "Our particular brand of quiet, the way our silences fit together." "Me too, love," Liam replied, his voice rough with emotion. "It's not just the quiet, it's Gore's symphony of quiet. And being away, it's made me realize I don't want to live without it ever again." When Liam returned, the reunion was a gentle explosion of relief and joy. He held her as if she were the missing piece of his very being, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. "I thought about you every waking moment," he confessed. "And every sleeping one too." "I know," Ilara whispered back. He led her to their favorite spot by the fire, holding her hand, his thumb tracing gentle patterns on her skin. "Ilara," he began, his gaze steady and earnest. "That time away, it made something profoundly clear. I want to build a life here with you, not just side by side but truly intertwined. This cottage feels like home, but it would be even more so if it were your home, a foundation for all our future chapters." Ilara's heart swelled, recognizing her own unspoken yearning reflected in his words. "I want that too, Liam. More than anything, I want to build our story, brick by beautiful brick." Their discussions flowed easily. Plans for a shared garden, a new reading nook, spaces for both their creative projects. They started looking for a house that could accommodate both their dreams. The following spring they found it, a charming old stone house nestled on a gentle slope, overlooking the winding river, with a sprawling garden that promised years of joyful cultivation. It was a house ready for new stories to be told within its walls. On their first evening in their new home, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in breathtaking shades of rose and lavender, Liam led Ilara to the window overlooking the garden. "Remember those fireflies?" he murmured, pulling her close. "The sparks that danced between our hearts?" Ilara leaned her head against his shoulder. "They're still there, Liam, stronger than ever, burning brighter with every shared breath." Liam turned her to face him, his eyes alight with profound tenderness. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden box. Inside, nestled on velvet, was a simple silver ring, elegantly crafted and engraved, with 2 intertwined leaves, a beautiful symbol of growth, connection, and enduring love. "Ilara, my love, my greatest story," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Will you write the rest of our chapters with me as my wife in this beautiful home, and for all our days?" Tears welled in Ilara's eyes. "Yes, Liam, 1,000 times yes, and a million more." He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit. Then, he kissed her, a kiss that sealed their past, celebrated their joyous present, and promised an eternity of beautiful tomorrows. As the first stars began to twinkle, they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, their hearts beating as one, ready to fill their new home with a lifetime of love, laughter, and endless heartwarming stories. Their story truly had found its most beloved beginning, a tapestry woven with threads of dreams, devotion, and a quiet, enduring joy that would last until the very last page.